somewhere else fly box. Today we're going to tie a bluegill popper called the Mini-Squirrel. It's a hair popper. I prefer hair over foam whenever I can use it. And let's go over how we tie it. I start off with a size 6 Gamakatsu stinger hook and 6/0 black uni thread. We're going to start our thread towards the last, right about at the point of the hook, and run it to the back of the shank. And at this point, we're going to tie in our first material, which is a small clump of gray squirrel tail. I cut off about a pencil size clump, and then I don't stack it, but I pull off the obvious flyers, obvious long ones. Then I pinch at the white barring and I sweep all the shorts out. That's as far as I go with the tail. And you're going to tie the tail in hook length. That's all the way to the bend of the hook, full hook length. I wrap forward just a little bit. And then I trim off the butts. And I bind them down well. The next material we're going to tie in is chartreuse silicone round legs. I like to use the ones with a little bit of glitter in them. With chartreuse I use the glitter. The majority of the other colors I go with a barred. I take 2 of them, bite around the thread, bring it up to where I want it, and give the initial wraps. And then divide it, make sure that I can position 2 on either side. Once I got it where I want it, give a few security wraps. I'm going to bind them down fairly well. That's going to give me 2 legs on either side. Next pair you're going to tie in is a dry fly hackle. I use the large webby hackle, size 6. I'm going to tie that in at the tail as well, and bring my thread forward to the front of that, my thread wraps. And we're going to wrap that tail collar 3 or 4 wraps. Get a good thick but short webby hackle collar there. A few security wraps. And then I like to whip finish right there. Just a quick whip finish. Make sure everything locks in place. Next material you're going to tie in is your hair. I'm going to use for this model, for this particular pattern, olive deer hair, deer body hair. I'm not going to stack it. I'm going to take about a pencil size section. I'm going to clean it with my fingers at the base. going to give the collar, I'm going to tie it in at the front of that hackle, and I'm going to extend the tips approximately midway back to the squirrel, into the squirrel tail. And we're going to keep that on top. I'm going to pinch wrap right in front of that collar, pull it tight, then wrap back into the hair. I'm basically tying in the tail section first. Sweep it back, put a few wraps in front. And we're going to take our next clump, about the same size. We're going to clean it with our fingers. We're not going to be using the tips, so we're not going to worry about it. I'm not too worried about where they end up. But we're going to give this about a ½ inch. I'm going to go right towards the base, grab the last ½ inch, and keeping it on top, I'm going to pinch wrap and flare. A few wraps, push it back. We only want the hair primarily on top anyway. We're going to trim the belly flat. Sweep it back, a few thread wraps, and repeat the process. We'll go fairly quick here to make sure we can fit this in the video. Same thing, clean the wraps with my fingers, take about the last ½ inch, keeping it on top, pinch wrap, flare, few wraps, and I just pack it with my fingers. And one more ought to do it. You don't need a lot. This is a short hook, so usually 3 clumps will do it. It's not a large popper. Push that hair back, keeping it on top, pinch wrap, give it a few security wraps, let it spin, and push it back. Yeah, that should do it. And we're going to sweep everything back. And we're going to give a whip finish. And then we will move on to our trimming. I like to pull everything forward. There's 2 things we want to do. We want to avoid cutting the legs off. We want to avoid cutting that rear fan off of mule deer or deer hair tails, our tips, and we want to shape. So to start with, I flip it upside down, making sure I got a hold of all the rubber legs first off, keeping them out of the way. We're going to trim that bottom. But we're only going to take it back to the hair, or the hackle. We don't want to cut all that hackle off. We want that hackle to remain on the bottom. And once we got that done, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to go from the rear to the front with the scissors. I'm going to cut my width. I want about a 45-degree angle. I'm going to sweep in from behind, grab the hair, give my side angle. And again on this side, Sweep in at a 45, grab everything from behind, cut both side angles. Now I have the side. If you look, you'll see we begin our shape. And we do the same thing from behind on top, same angle, and we continue to do that until we've gathered all the rear clipped butts. And by sweeping in from behind, you get all those without getting that fanned rear collar. Try and keep on camera here as much as I can. Sweep in from behind, grab them short, line your scissors up with the angle, keeping our taper. And you just keep looking for the butts. Gather them up in the crook of your scissors, and then bring your scissors up to that angle and trim them off. And then you're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. You always will with a popper. You're going to have a few that'll wrap around and you'll have to catch. And you can clip them off as need be. And you'll see you form your head. You want that diver shaped head. I like a diver shaped head, especially with a smaller popper. It gives it more action than a regular popper. A little more swimming action when you bring it under. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your legs, you're going to come back, you're going to trim them off the length of the tail. They're just little. That's all you want. And place that back in. And there it is. Small popper. Gives a great footprint. A lot of movement on the water. You can trim it as small as you want. I like to keep the head about like it is right there. Fans off into the hair. Great swimming action. Perfect size for panfish. We'll bring up those large panfish as well. The Mini-Squirrel. Hope it adds to your box as it has mine. Good luck. See you on the water.